While
Captain
aboard,
Orion. Hello.
while aboard the UC Vigilance, and in the brig, we can talk to the, I don't know what you call him, brig master,
Pardon?
security chief,
We'll keep the brig ready for any pirates you bring in.
Armin
Welcome
Petrosian.
to the brig. As a member of SysDef, you may talk with the prisoners as long as you are mindful of operation security. As a personal rule, I simply ask that you adhere to UC Navy standards of cleanliness at all times. That means no mud on your boots, your hands are washed, and you are free of any contagious diseases.
Alright, why the focus on cleanliness?
Besides the fact that it's healthier, a sanitary brig is important for station security. In my experience, a prisoner will hide a shiv under a flake of dust if you let them. The cleaner a space is, the easier it is to spot irregularities, both inside the cell and out.
Well, I keep things neat and tidy, so it won't be a problem.
Excellent. And all that being said, I understand your mission directive might call for flexibility on my part. So if you need to be a rum-drinking, swashbuckling pirate to do your job, then I will do my best to clean up after you.
Well, how do you handle treatment of the prisoners?
That's a loaded question. We err on the side of caution here, short of any physical abuse. But with the Crimson Fleet, you have to be very careful. If you give them an inch, they'll take a parsec and find a way to stab you with it.
Do the guards get into it with the prisoners?
Verbally, yes. There's a lot of bad blood with the fleet, stretching across generations, myself included. Sometimes that blood spills over. As long as there's no actual fighting, I tend to let both sides dish it out.
Alright. Security aside, we should try to keep things as humane as possible.
Yes, although it's always a balance. At the end of the day, these are ruthless pirates, and they will take advantage of any weakness you show. But I'll be the first to admit it's not an exact science, and we've made mistakes in the past with both the carrot and the stick. As chief officer of this brig, my worst fear is that we'll someday repeat them. You're dismissed.
As soon as we get our first prisoner, we get some new dialogue options. As the brig officer, is there anything you need from me?
As a matter of fact, I have a favor to ask. I understand that part of your undercover work involves going to the fleet headquarters, namely the key. While you're there, if you find anything pertaining to the history of the fleet, I'd be interested in learning about it.
Well, there's a lot we can both learn, I'm sure.
I agree. Just keep in mind this is a favor and you're free to ignore it. I only ask because this is such a rare opportunity and I'd hate to pass it up.
Well, I'll keep an eye out for you.
I appreciate it. I've actually heard rumors about there being audio logs for an interview the founder of the fleet, Jasper Kryx, did on the key. I'm interested in anything he had to say regarding his time in prison and how the prisoners were treated. If you find anything like that, bring it back here and we'll take a listen.
Why the fascination with the fleet's history?
The fleet and the UC are intertwined, and I've always felt knowing that past as an important part of what we do. In life, history can be a guide, a warning, or at times, a reflection. And if you want to know which one it is, You have to stare it in the face, regardless of how ugly it is. Keep
Alright.
the floors and your nose clean and you can stay as long as you like.
Sounds good. And he would have given us an activity, find information on the conditions in the lock. So next thing we need to do is head off to the lock. As soon as you make it to the key, you can pick up all of the slates. You can do it at any point in time. It doesn't have to be immediately after the quest. I am doing it near the end of the quest line.
Captain Orion, hello. I am satisfied to
Thanks,
see that
Jasper.
you survived your most recent sleep cycle.
Thanks. And I'm going to pick them up in order, so I may be moving around the ship
We call UCC staff sharks.
in an odd
To the fleet,
pattern
they are
because
just
they're not
bait.
laid out in a direct pattern. But the first one is here in the entranceway. As soon as you get here, aboard the key, and you're walking down the hallway towards the atrium.
I got secret compartments on my ship.
Right here on this bench is SSNN Kryx interview part 1.
Hello, everyone. I'm Gail Dunnigan of SSNN, and this is Galactalk. My guest tonight is one of the most notorious criminals in the settled systems. His ruthlessness and desire for wealth has landed him squarely at the top of the wanted list for every major law enforcement agency in the galaxy. I am, of course, speaking of the self-appointed leader of the Crimson Fleet himself, Jasper Kryx. Good evening, Mr. Kryx.
Good evening, Gail. Thank you for accepting my invitation.
Yes, well, being blindfolded and then Graf jumped to what appears to be an abandoned mining facility isn't exactly what I'd call an invitation.
Well, I'm sure you're not surprised that your request for an interview would come with some very specific conditions.
Frankly, I was a bit surprised to receive any type of response at all. Would you mind telling me why you decided to do this interview?
Because there comes a time in every pirate's life where they have to make an extremely important decision. Do they take a leap and become one of the most legendary pirates in history? Or do they simply sputter on, subsisting on freighters and deep space privateers?
So are we to assume that you are taking the leap? That Jasper Kryx is moving on to bigger and better things in his life?
That's spot on, Gail. That's exactly why you're here.
Interesting. Well then, would you mind sharing with us exactly what your particular leap entails?
In due time. There's no rush. In fact, I'd say we have at least 12 hours before the authorities trace this broadcast. Plenty of time to discuss whatever you like.
Oh, all right then. Perhaps the best place to start this interview would be at the beginning of your career.
Please, proceed.
Well, that's an odd place to end off the interview tape. Or these got limits on them? So I'm also listening to these for the first time. I went through the ship to find them all, but I didn't record them all until I was sure I found them all. Or I didn't listen to them all, or any of them, until I was sure I found them all. So as soon as you open up and get in here, if it's your first time, these two doors will be locked and you'll have to go through the entire ship. But the second one will actually be to your left. So go ahead and walk past all these guys.
I need something bigger.
I'm trying to think if this actually is faster. No, it's faster to go straight. So we'll go straight. And then we'll go left because it's actually in the gym. Also, when you come into the gym, there should be a magazine. Peak Performance number 5. Permanently adds 5% to unarmed damage. We'll go ahead and grab that. And then right over here is Kryx Interview Part 2.
Where did your stellar rise to infamy begin?
In the streets of New Atlantis. No parents, no godparents. Just a homeless punk kid robbing whoever he could for the credits.
Were these violent crimes? Murders?
I'm a bit offended you even asked that question, Gail. Sure, a few people here and there walked away with injuries, but I'm not some kind of butcher.
That doesn't sound as heartless as your reputation would imply.
Well, like I said, I was just a kid.
Were you ever caught by the authorities in New Atlantis?
Oh, dozens of times. I'd just give them a fake name, or they just slap me on the wrist and send me on my way. They obviously didn't think that I'd amount to anything and didn't want to waste their time with rehabilitation.
What changed that? Was it the robbery in 2218?
2218. Oh, yeah. The Galbank archives. Very good, Gail. I see you've done your research. That would be when I rounded up a few of my buddies and we knocked the place over. Made off with a ton of credits. My first big score.
Is that why the Crimson Scar decided to bring you into their ranks?
That's right. They brought me in, taught me the ropes, and I did crimes for them for 5 years. Till I decided I wanted more. I got rid of their leader, put myself in his place, and started running the show. I've been the one in charge ever since.
Was it absolutely necessary to cut his throat and leave the body on a public street in the well?
On the street, reputation is everything. I wanted everyone in the city to know that Jasper Kryx was taking over. I think they got the message.
All right. So yeah, if this is a 12-hour
name is Sysdef
interview, why is it so chopped up? Let's go back to our point of reference, which was not this way. This way. So starting back at the docking port, number 3 will actually be the second one you most likely come across because it's to the right in the depot. If you find Terran,
Heading out.
go behind the store where Terran is, so make a right. Back here next to this terminal that I've also not read yet is interview number 3.
So tell us about Jasper Kryx's version of the Crimson Scar.
All I can tell you is that under my guidance, the Crimson Scar became more influential than every other syndicate combined. Here I was, 22 years old, and I had power, people that followed my orders, and an endless stream of credits. Gail, I have to tell you, I was having the time of my life.
So you'd consider extortion, robbery, burglary, kidnapping, assault, and murder to be positive life influences?
No. I'd consider them as just means to an end. Those so-called crimes were merely stepping stones until I had enough wealth to buy the Crimson Scar a few spacecraft.
Yes, let's talk about that. It appears you weren't satisfied with terrorizing New Atlantis alone.
Oh, I've never stopped reaching, Gail. The amount of money we were making in New Atlantis was decent, but the really big scores were in space, on the cargo ships. We're talking millions of credits, maybe more. Who the hell could count it all?
Most people assume this is when the UC decided to actively set up a task force to pursue the Crimson Scar.
That's correct. Those idiots in charge of the United Colonies were clearly embarrassed that they had allowed the Crimson Scar to make the jump into space. They sent ships after us. Lots of ships. I almost think that they enjoy starting wars.
Perhaps this was the first time you had finally reached too far. far.
You could say that. I count my time running the Crimson Scar as a learning experience. I wouldn't say I reached too far. I'd say I reached too fast. Didn't cover all my bases. Made some stupid mistakes. One thing's for certain, though. When I was finally arrested and thrown into the lock, I had plenty to think about.
Okay. So let's get back to our reference point. Back here in the docking ports. So our next one... Not this way. Our next one is going to be upstairs. So we're going to take the elevator, or the lift. I think it's British terms. Once we're in the command center, it's going to be in the conference room, which is right here. Number 4.
Tell us about your arrest.
Oh, my arrest was spectacular. Definitely one for the record books. UC Security sent an armada after our little fleet of ships and picked us off one by one until the remainder of us made it to the wheel.
For our listeners' benefit, that was the star station in orbit around Voli that you destroyed just before your arrest, correct?
You see, that's what they'd have you believe, but the truth is much less sinister. There was a firefight on the wheel when they tried to bring us in. We holed up, but UC Security unleashed hell. The damage they caused was catastrophic. We only surrendered so we wouldn't die when the station exploded.
Well, the UC says you set demolition charges to try and cover your tracks and make your escape.
That's their story. You'll have to go with your gut on what you think really happened. Anyway, they took us in and tossed us into the lock. That lovely resort they opened on Suvorov.
And you were imprisoned there for how long?
Well, it was supposed to be for life, Gale. But I ended up serving 2 years before I decided I'd had enough.
Is there any particular reason that you started the riots that eventually led to the worst prison break in United Colonies history?
Yes. I'm quite proud of that, actually. I honestly didn't think it would go as well as it did. As for the reason, well, it's simple. The UC were treating us like animals. The conditions in the lock were ridiculously bad and no one cared. That's why they stuck us on that ice ball in the first place. Out of sight, out of mind.
Your escape caused the deaths of many that were stationed at the lock. Some would brand that as a bit dismissive for what you're describing as a protest. If you were simply advocating for your fellow inmates, why didn't you just go through the proper channels?
And what the hell was I supposed to do? Send a strongly worded letter to my duly appointed representative? Wake up. The UC only responds to actions, not words. In my mind, there was no other choice. You know what? Let's move past my time at the lock so we can get to the point of this goddamned interview.
Okay. She's starting to touch some nerves. And now we have an update. Now I can show Armin Petrosian the audio log. Because this is the one he wanted. He wanted to know how people were being treated in prisons so he could not treat the people the same way. But now we gotta go to the 5th one. The 5th one is in the bar. So even though we came all the way upstairs, we gotta go back downstairs. And make our way to the bar. So find Sheena Voss.
Piracy missions are always a healthy source of income.
And then head on in. we're gonna head towards the bar here.
I heard
The main
Iswa's
bar.
sister is some hardcore mercenary.
Pretty sure I already did. So there will be a magazine here. I've already picked it up. I don't remember
Nothing
which
like
one
the
it
smell
was.
of a dead shark after you cook 'em
But
with an
on
energy
the
drink.
left side of the bar, right here, is interview number 5.
Certainly. Let's talk about something else. How did the Crimson Scar become the Crimson Fleet?
After I busted out of the lock, I decided to take things to the next level. I had the key, a few UC ships, and a couple dozen ex-cons at my side. But I needed more, so I sent out the call. Once word got around, it didn't take long for freelance pirates from every corner of the settled systems to show up.
And this is how the Crimson Fleet was born.
Exactly. The key became our base of operations. We spent months reinforcing our position there, making it nearly impossible to approach.
What was the UC's response to the situation?
First of all, UC Security gave up and handed the reins over to the big guns, the UC Navy. The Navy, in turn, sent ships to attack the key. I'd say there have been 3 major attacks over the last few years. And as you can tell by the fact we're having this interview, all the attacks were embarrassing failures.
Do you feel these embarrassing failures led them to form UC systems?
Absolutely. They've clearly given up and decided to shove the responsibility onto a separate division. That way, in the public eye, the UC Navy can move forward, proud and strong, while UC SysDef continually takes all the blame. It's all about PR spin for them, Gale. That's how the UC operates. Kinda disgusting, don't you think?
Sounds a bit like you're trying to deflect attention off the atrocities the Crimson Fleet commits on a daily basis.
Atrocities, huh? How about fighting the Freestar Collective over a bunch of rocks hanging in space? How about thousands of people dying while a bunch of pencil-pushing bastards sit in a cushy office and draw lines on a star map? Maybe the United Colonies should stop the bullshit and take a hard look in the mirror to see who the monsters really are.
Yeah, I kind of feel like Gale's just gonna get killed here, huh? Now we gotta go get number 6.
Some people drink coffee to wake up.
That's nice.
I have bought plenty of stuff.
Yep, you drink alcohol to wake up. So now we have to head back upstairs to get number 6. Okay. I thought it was a toaster. There are stairs to actually walk up, but might as well just take the elevator. So once we're back in the command room, we need to head up to the boss's bedroom, which is right here, Delgado's bedroom. And inside his actual bedroom, so this is his, I guess, apartment. But in his bedroom is Kryx's interview number 6.
Tell us what the future holds for the Crimson Fleet.
Changes are coming, Gale. Huge changes. Crimson Fleet will soon be a much bigger player in this little game between the members of the settled systems.
That's quite a bold statement. Would you care to elaborate?
Well, let's just say that I'm on the brink of a score so large, it makes everything else pale in comparison. Beyond that, you'll just have to wait and see.
If you aren't willing to discuss the details, why grant SSNN this interview?
Simple. I refuse to allow the UC to spin or bury the story, making it sound like they're in complete control of the situation. I'm gonna tell you right now, they aren't.
Why does the Crimson Fleet need to make this mysterious move that you're being so evasive about?
I know Sistef instructed you to draw this meeting out as long as possible. So let me sum this up. I intend to make sure that the Crimson Fleet becomes the United Colony's worst nightmare. And nothing, I mean nothing in this universe, will stop me from achieving that goal.
There are those that would disagree with you and claim this interview is grandstanding, or worse, a recruitment tool. After all, SSNN reaches every corner of the settled systems, and your aspirations could inspire the directionalist to turn to the fleet.
You and the sheep that listen to your garbage can believe whatever the hell you want. If you were so worried about what I had to say, you wouldn't have allowed yourself to be brought here.
All right. Once again, he is being pushed, getting more and more upset. Let's go get that final interview tape and see how things end for Gale. It's going to be in the bunks. In fact, give me 1 sec to check. So it's not in these bunks. So we'll ignore all of them. And head on downstairs. I guess those are the bedrooms. These are the bunks, because it will be in the final bunk, which is this one.
Let me just ask you one final question before we wrap up.
Fine. Go ahead.
When is enough going to be enough? How many credits does Jasper Kryx need until he's satisfied?
I should have expected you to ask such a stupid question. How the hell could you ever understand? You with your fancy education and your sheltered upbringing and your cushy media job? Me, I came from nothing. Everything I own, I've literally drawn blood to gain.
There's no need to get personal. I'm simply trying to state the facts so that our listeners can make judgments of their own.
Lady, I got news for you. Half of your listeners think I'm a hero. The other half are scared out of their goddamn minds, and they should be.
Perhaps we should talk about something else.
No, that's it. We're done. Can you guys get her the hell out of here? Make sure she takes all this sound equipment with her.
Well, that's it then. Thank you for your...
Actually, before you go, Gale, there's one more thing I would like to say.
Yes, of course. What is it?
When you broadcast this interview on SSNN, I want you to remember that I'll be listening. If you edit even one word or manipulate my voice to change anything I've said, I will hunt you down and kill you in front of everyone. Do you understand?
I understand. You have my word.
That was the final interview. So we only needed tape 4 to give to...
Is Samina seeing anyone right now? The patients, I mean. I got a sore hip.
No, dude, I get it. Sure.
I like my weapons like I like my coffee.
Scalding. Yes. We've all heard this before. So he it's tough to say. Was he really using this as a hiring tool? Or did he actually want to get the truth out? I think he wanted to genuinely get the truth out. Yes, the UC is bad, but the Crimson Fleet is worse. We've seen it in so many other games. Just looking at Fallout and the Elder Scrolls.
Been hearing some stuff about the Mantis being back.
To take other Bethesda games, you know, into consideration. You have the Legion, terrible, and then, okay, and then you have the NCR, also not that great. But 1 is always the worst option. I said Bethesda, and then I used that one, but... I guess, yeah, Institute and Brotherhood, but both are bad. But obviously 1 is worse. I just immediately did it again, didn't I? Always pressing the wrong one to get off the ship instead of undocking. Let's go ahead.
Complete.
Go to Sagan? We'll go drop this off. See what Patrol has to say. Find out if Gale got killed.
Jump complete. Normal propulsion restored.
No! No! Oh, it did it. Okay, good. I was just gonna ram the ship.
Docking cycle complete.
Captain Orion, greetings.
Got our docking cycle complete.
Yes. What? Hello?
Heard you had to board the Siren of the Stars. I was on there once for a tribute to my ancestors.
One of the officers.
I never felt more out
mob
of
duty
place.
now on my birthday. It's gonna suck.
Well, Armin, I have the thing for you.
As a former convict, you've seen the inside of a cell. Stay out of mine and we'll get along just fine.
I've been to Serverov. No. We'll probably say this one first. Yeah. So I found this slate where Kryx says the prisoners on the lock were tortured.
So it's true. All my life I've been led to believe the guards on the lock were heroes. But there was part of me that always doubted the story. Even as a child learning about the history from the slates. Thank you for bringing me this. I get that Kryx is about as unreliable a witness as they come, but I believe him.
Why is the history of the lock so important to you?
Because it isn't just any history. It's my family's. If you open up a history slate and look up the name Garo Petrosian, you'll find a hero decorated in medals. Medals he earned for escaping the riots on Suvorov.
And I have a professor check. Petrosian, as in your ancestor.
My great-grandfather, to be exact. He lived until the year 2297, 10 years after I was born.
And we can also ask, why was he awarded medals?
For helping his fellow guards escape the riots. And maybe that part is true, but it conveniently skips everything that happened before that point. No one ever asks what prompted the riots. It was just criminals being criminals, and that was explanation enough.
And now we can use our professor check. I know of Garo Petrosian. I didn't know he was your ancestor. I didn't know of Garo Petrosian, but I guess just because I was a professor, I know.
It's a source of pride for many in my family. I don't think they ever bothered to learn the truth of it. The thing is, even as my family rode the coattails of our name, I always felt like something wasn't right about the story. And it always came back to that day in the yard, playing games with my brother. It's the only memory I have of my great-grandfather that sticks.
So, did you get this position because of your name?
I'd like to say no, but how can that be true? Pursuing a military career, the name could only help.
All right, well, tell me about this memory.
It was about a week before he passed. Me and my brother had the house to ourselves and were playing a game we called Prisoner's Run. It was a simple game. We drew a line in the dirt, and the object was for the guard to keep the prisoner from crossing it. But on that day, my brother came to the yard with an added surprise. He found a chest in the attic filled with goodies, a baton, a uniform, and a medal to serve as prize for the winner.
It was in the attic, it couldn't have been that valuable. So it was the medal he got from escaping the riots.
Indeed, but as boys, we didn't connect the dots. After all, why would something so precious be stuffed in the attic? But when our family returned, I knew something was wrong. My great-grandfather didn't say a word, but behind his eyes I could see it. The shame. No one said anything to either of us. But the next day, the uniform and the medal were gone. At the time, I never understood why he kept those things buried in the attic. Now, it all seems so clear.
Well, not all of them were terrible people, but I guess his grandfather was. This doesn't mean your ancestor was a bad man. He could have still been a hero.
Maybe not a bad man, but a hero? Hard to say. Either way, thanks for talking this through with me. I don't know if I'll ever know what really happened on Suvorov, but at least now, I have something beyond the family myth.
I got mess hall duty.
Hold
next
on.
week.
Some of the guards don't
gotta
take
take their
kindly to
turn.
the prisoners, but we should try to maintain some decorum.
So I've been to Suvorov as part of my undercover work.
Really? I know you were headed to the key, but I didn't realize you'd actually get a chance to visit the lock. I almost respect the fleet for doing that. They're trying to pass down their history, or their version of it anyway.
You respect the fact that they take new recruits to the lock?
I respect the principle of teaching one's history. It makes me think Delgado wants the fleet to be more than just space pirates. When you connect the past with the future, you're trying to create a culture, a through line between you and Jasper Kryx.
Well, Jasper is trying to do that. I mean, this is also, he is looking for a treasure, but he also wants the people to remember the history. So it is that deep, so I'm not going to say it's not that deep. I did feel the weight of history as I walked through it.
Incredible. I think at SysDef, we all feel that weight every time we wear the uniform. But to be there where it started, I can't imagine. But all that aside, give me your honest opinion. What were the conditions like?
They were terrible. Yep, so it was brutal. With how they were treated, it's no wonder the inmates revolted.
I was afraid of that. I think I'm starting to fully realize the hand we played in all this. Truth be told, my ancestor was a guard on Suvorov. Part of the reason I joined SysDef was to find out more about his experience, and whether the history books told the whole story. And coupled with Kryx's testimony, it paints a damning picture.
And that's it.
As you were.
Because this wasn't really a quest, we don't get an actual reward.